All right, here is a quick tutorial on how to make jun. Jun tea is very similar to kombucha. However, with kombucha, you use black tea and sugar, white sugar, to ferment. With jun, you use honey and green tea. It's a lot healthier version, even more so than kombucha. Has a lot of health benefits. Can be delicious. It can be used for a lot of different applications. We drink it. It's changed our lives. Helps all in a really natural way, a really healthy way. Here are the materials that you'll need to get started for the first fermentation. So typically there's a 2 fermentation process for flavored jun. You can get just regular plain honey flavored jun after 1 fermentation. But here are the ingredients that you'll need. Distilled water or reverse osmosis water, about 1 gallon. Need some measuring spoons, some tools to use in the kitchen, measuring cups. Need a high quality green loose leaf tea. I like to use Dragonwell personally. Gunpowder is another option, but find some high quality loose leaf green tea. You'll need a gallon jar to ferment in. So like this one here with a cheesecloth cover. This is the SCOBY for the jun. We'll come back to that in a minute. Get some raw unfiltered honey is what I prefer to use. Something to steep your tea in. You need a thermometer to measure the temperature of water and product. And then you'll have a bottle blanket to keep the temperature of your fermentation jar, gallon jar, the right temperature as you ferment, to make sure that you get the proper fermentation and for the right flavor and potency. This book is the Big Book of Kombucha. This is your encyclopedia guidebook, your North Star when it comes to brewing kombucha, or to fermenting, I should say. Not technically it's brewing or fermenting, but fermenting the tea. It has so much good information there, and everything is very similar in jun as it is to kombucha, with the ingredients being the main difference and the measurements being slightly different, which I'll talk about in a minute. But reference that book. It's got so much good information in there. Talk all about the SCOBYs, about what it is, the health benefits. It has recipes for different flavor profiles. It has really good imagery to help you understand when things are going well or not going well with your ferment, what you can do to adjust, to fix. It's basically just one of the best books that I've read as far as health books go, especially for, obviously for kombucha and jun. So keep it nearby, use it, mark it up. There aren't many answers I haven't been able to find for the questions I've had about this. They've all been in that book. It's just a great book. So this is not a scripted video at all. It's very raw, but just want to make sure I'm showing you guys how I do it. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do, I'm going to set some of this aside. I am going to start with brewing my tea. I'm going to set these ingredients aside here and getting the tea brewed for a 1 gallon portion. So in order to do that, I'm going to take approximately between 1.5 and 2 tablespoons of loose leaf green tea. And these recipes can also be found in the book if you forget or if you want to take a look. So I'm going to get this high quality green tea here. Can't see it that well, but anyway, I've got some really good green tea. I'm going to do 1.5 to 2 approximately tablespoons of loose leaf tea here. So there's 1, and we'll just do like a loose second one. All right. And what I will do, set that aside, is I'm just using a kettle over here on the side that I'm going to go ahead and use to heat up some water. Now, brewing green tea is an interesting, brewing tea in general. Most people don't know that you're not supposed to let your tea steep or brew for too long. It becomes bitter if you do. Can affect the flavor, and it becomes a little too earthy for my liking and everything else. So I put some water into this kettle here, kind of off camera, sorry. And I'm just going to start that up. I need to heat up the heat up the water first. But while that's heating up, I just want to make sure that I talk about this a little bit. So make sure you don't oversteep your tea. Make sure you have the right amount for 1 gallon. Now you can brew more than 1 gallon at a time if you want, but yeah, 1 gallon is an easy place to start. So make sure your tools are clean. You want to make sure that you don't oversteep. So wait for that water to heat up. Now I'm going to take the temperature of this water as it's heating up. 185 degrees Fahrenheit is, I think, Dragon Well's steeping point for optimum tea. So I'm going to watch the water and try and catch it when it's about 185 degrees. There's a chart in this book here. It'll tell you exactly how long to steep each kind of tea. So I'm going to blow that up really quickly. Sure what that looks like. So this page here, you can kind of see the chart. It has all the different kinds of tea and the time. So looking at this, I have Dragon Well tea, 185 degree brewing temperature, steeping for 3 to 4 minutes. So I'm just going to use a French press here to do that, make it easy. We'll watch and check this temperature. Feel free, like I said, this is not a scripted video, so feel free to fast forward if I'm just rambling too much. I don't have any good jokes for you. Just trying to get it done. So, while that's heating up, let's talk a little bit about the honey, because that'll be the next step we do this here. So I like to use raw unfiltered honey. This one you can get at Costco from the Northwest. So I think this is up from, you know, the Kirkland area, I'm guessing, is where this is harvested and where it's produced. There's a lot of benefits to having the raw honey. It ferments better, number one. The antioxidants, the anti-inflammatory, the antibacterial, all those benefits that you get are a lot stronger with raw honey than with processed honey or with with the overly processed honey. You lose a lot of that stuff. So honey doesn't do well when there's too much heat. So in fact, at 86 degrees, for 5 minutes at 86 degrees, honey will start to lose a lot of its live properties that are healthy. So we don't want to add honey to anything that's more than 186 degrees. Sorry, I totally misspoke. 185 degrees is what we're brewing the tea at. 86 degrees is where honey will start to die. 86. So do not add honey to anything warmer than 86 degrees. That's why I keep this handy little thermometer nearby and keep the temperatures right. If you do this, it just makes everything work a little bit more smoothly, a little better. It's worth just measuring the temperatures to be on point. Think of it as like a science experiment, because that's really what we're doing here. Almost there. A few more degrees to steep this tea. All right. And coming up. But yeah, get some good tea. I like to find local tea, or sorry, honey. Get some good tea, get some good honey. I like to find the local honey when I can. Farmers markets or some markets around. And the one thing that honey does really well is antihistamines. So if you struggle with allergies, especially spring and fall, if you can find a local honey, it's going to be a lot stronger and work a lot better for the antihistamine for the environment that you're in locally. So wherever you are, the honey will have a natural antihistamine for that same area. So here I am. I've got the steeping starting. Alexa, start a timer for 3.5 minutes. So I'm gonna let
3 minutes and 30 seconds, starting now.
I'm just gonna let this steep and I'll be right back. All right, the tea is about done brewing. So I'm gonna go ahead and press it here. Get that nice green golden tea. You can kind of see under the light. It smells great. Green tea has a lot of health benefits as well. I'm sure you guys are aware of that. So this is all really healthy ingredients, raw, organic when possible, everything else. So one thing about the jar that you want to use for ferment, you want to make sure this is very clean. So one thing to keep in mind is antibacterial soap and fermentation do not like each other. So if you do wash your jar with antibacterial soap, make sure it's rinsed very well and dried. If you wash it and you're going to use it right away, I like to do a quick either white vinegar rinse, or even sometimes I'll throw a little bit of Jun in there and some clean water to kind of rinse it out, to get it out, and then dry it as much as possible. You know, make sure that you have a really clean, sterile, without residue of any antibacterial soap. So that's really important because you don't want to kill off your SCOBY and while you're brewing. So to get started here, I like to put a little bit of water at the bottom because I don't want the really hot tea to hit a potentially cold bottle and crack it. So I put a little bit in so I can pour my tea on top of it. And again, this is the amount that we're gonna have for 1 gallon. So we'll go ahead and pour that tea in there. So it's really a pretty, it's not a strong tea, but it does have the health benefits of the tea. And it has the nutrients that it can use during the fermentation process. But it's a very light tea. So I do that, and then I take a temperature of this to make sure that it's not too hot. So right now I'm at about 111. So I'm going to continue to add cool water, again, distilled or reverse osmosis, until I get to about 85 degrees is what I'm shooting for approximately, or under 86 again, because I don't want to add my honey until it's cool enough. I don't want to kill off all the good stuff in the honey. That's another benefit here. Getting closer, a little more in there. Now you don't want to put too much in at the beginning because you need to have room to add your SCOBY at the end. So you don't want this to be completely full. And you want also the water to be warm enough that it can dissolve the honey easily. So if you go too cold, you know, the honey, it'll dissolve, but it just takes a lot more work and a lot more time to do that. Okay, so I'm about halfway there, and that's about 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, I'm about almost 86. So I'm gonna stir that up a little bit. Yeah, so you can see it's about 85. Can you show? That's going down, but you can trust me, it's about 85. So then the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add the honey. Now, the recipe for kombucha is, hang on a second. The recipe for kombucha is 1 cup of white sugar per gallon of black tea. Now with Jun, honey is a little bit different, the properties are a little different, the SCOBY and the fermentation is a little bit different. So it's slightly less honey, so about 7/8 of a cup of honey is what we want to use here. So let me get that there so you can see what's going on. Takes forever. I'm going to take the lid off a little faster here. So you want it to be about 7/8 of a cup. It doesn't have to be exact, but you want to make sure you don't have more than a cup. You definitely want to have a little bit less. So, but these measurements do not need to be exact when it comes to the honey and the tea. But I try to keep them pretty close. So I've got about 7/8 cup right there, as you can see. I'm gonna grab a little spatula if I have one. It's right here. Dishwasher, sorry about that. Again, this is not scripted, so you get all of it. Then I'm just gonna add the honey in. As you can see, I'm just adding the honey in to the jar. I'm scraping it out with my little rubber spatula to get all that good stuff in there. This is the liquid gold. Yeah, if you can find those local honeys, I have a friend of mine who actually has beehives that I used to work with down in Lehigh, and I buy my honey from him a lot of times when he has it in the summer when he has extra, but there's only so much of that to go around from the small producers, so can't always get it. The Costco Northwest is a great go-to. I think has a really good flavor. Now keep in mind, different honeys as well will have different flavors. So a lavender honey or a lighter honey is going to cause a different flavor profile for the Jun than say Manuka or, you know, a different floral type honey. So pick the honey you like. You'll try it out. Every time you can adjust and tweak. And like I said, this is kind of a science experiment. So the name of the game a little bit is, you know, change it up. Maybe add a little more, a little less tea next time, or a different kind of honey, maybe a different kind of tea. If you're getting quality ingredients, you can't mess it up too bad, but you can tweak it and adjust it as well as the time that you take to ferment the tea and the temperature that you ferment it at. Those are, or I should say, the temperature at which you ferment the Jun and the time that it ferments will also affect the flavor profile. So I'm just using my wooden spoon here. I'm gonna dissolve that honey up real nice. Make sure that there's no clumps sitting in there, nothing on the sides. Keep that going. Good idea is to have a roll of paper towels within reach, because you're gonna splash a little bit, probably make a bit of a mess. Not too much on this part. The second ferment can be a little messier when you're trying to bottle your Jun, but this is good. So yeah, this looks like it's pretty well dissolved in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab the SCOBY. So what is a SCOBY? This is your start. This is your fermentation start. So think of it like a sourdough start. This is what it is. So if you look in there, there's a pellicle. There's a couple pieces actually. Looks like kind of a slimy white disc. And then there's 2 cups in here of pretty strong gin. So it's a little stronger than normal because it's been sitting out for a little bit because I didn't do it right away. But you want to use the strong gin. We'll talk about how to create the SCOBY for the next batch. So the idea is that when you are done fermenting your tea, you'll create a SCOBY for your next batch and then bottle off the rest, and then you can continue that. You can get multiple SCOBYs, you get multiple gallons going at once if you want to. I typically do about 2 gallons at a time, but you'll want the SCOBY, and I'll provide this to you. But this is a pellicle and some strong gin in there, and that's what will start the fermentation process. So I make sure that I have that, and I'm just going to dump it in here. You can kind of see the chunks. That looks a little bit gross, but don't be afraid. This is really healthy, good stuff. The bacteria, the yeast, the balance is really close to our human microbiome. The Jun drink is said to be started in the ancient days with like the shamans and some of the monks that would do it as our holy drink. A lot of health benefits. But that's what will start is you just dump that in just like that, and then I grab water and I will top off the rest of it. And what I do is I put it right up to about the collar. So you don't want it all the way to the very top, but right to the collar of the jar. You can see right there. So there's a little bit of air on top, and then I have these cheesecloth. You can choose the cheesecloth and rubber band, or have these little caps that just go on like a little bonnet to cover the top there. So you can kind of see that we have the cover. What that looks like is, just a piece of cheesecloth that goes over the top. So that'll give it the air that it needs to be able to ferment. And this batch of Jun is ready to be warmed up. So the next thing I'm gonna do is grab my warming blanket. And you don't have to have these, especially in the summertime. Your Jun will ferment without them, as long as it's at least 70 degrees inside your home. But yeah, so I'm gonna grab this warming blanket. And this really is just a wrap for the bottle to make sure that the temperature of the Jun stays consistent. So I'll show you how it works on this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and Velcro that guy on there nice and tight. Make sure it's even. Come on there. There we go. And then there's a little suction cup here on the temperature cord. If I can get it untangled. And you can see that little suction cup there. I just stick that on the bottle at the top. What that does is that takes a reading of the temperature of the bottle temperature. And then the control here, you plug it in and you can set it to the right temperature. I like to set mine at 74 degrees and then let my Jun ferment about 7 days. Sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes a little more, depending on the outside temperature. If you want to ferment faster, you can bump the temperature up to as high as 77, I believe, is the high. Or if you want to take longer, you can do it down to 72. And then you just have to, if you do 75, I check it after, 5 days. If I do 72, then it's probably going to be closer to 9-10 days. Or more, less, depending on the flavor you like, how fermented you like it, all those different things. So again, you can mess around with the temperature and the time of fermentation to get the flavor you like. But what I really have dialed in on for what I like to do is 74 degrees for about 7 days. So I check in at 6 and kind of see, and then if I need to go a little longer, I will. 7-8 days. Sometimes I'll get a little stronger batch if I'm out of town or have to go an extra day or something, and that's okay. You just have a little stronger flavor. But once you start getting used to this and your body starts thanking you for drinking it, you're gonna like the fermentation taste. We just don't get enough fermented foods in our diet, I don't think. And when it comes to gut health and microbiome, skin, gut, it's really important. So it's really helped with people I know in my life, and I've told you some of those stories, some of you. So yeah, hopefully that makes a lot of sense. Anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and set this aside. I'm gonna make another gallon. I'll maybe do another quick video once I get it all plugged in to show you what it looks like. And then that's part one. That's how you start your Jun. Here is what it looks like with the bottle blanket on. And you can see I've got it set there. I've got it set to 74. It's slightly warmer. It'll fluctuate up and down a little bit depending on the temperature inside the home. But I keep this set to 74. Maybe I bumped it up to 75. But yeah, it's set to 74. One thing to keep in mind is there's the suction cup. It's the temperature probe that goes on the bottle. Make sure that the temperature probe metal piece is touching, the rubber on the suction cup, so you can get an accurate reading, because the suction cup will warm up and touch the temperature probe and keep it. So when it drops to low temp, it'll turn on for a minute and it'll heat it up. Yeah, and if it's not touching, it could get too hot and cook kill your start and your SCOBY and everything. But as you can see, it's been about a week now, and you can see there's the mother and the daughter floating at the top. It's kind of thicker at the bottom, thinner at the top. We can talk about that more in a minute. But that's what it'll look like with the bottle blanket on. Again, I do 74 degrees for about a week. That's when I try it. So moving on. Next, we're gonna go ahead and take our Jun that is brewed for about a week, and we're going to do the second fermentation process, or the flavoring process. This is what adds flavor to the Jun, aside from just the basic honey, as well as adds the carbonation to the Jun. You can kind of add as much or little carbonation. It's natural carbonation. We'll talk about that. But to do that, you want to make sure the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you get the next start. So your next starter, which includes your SCOBY, your pellicle here, and some strong Jun, will be the portion that you use to start your next batch. Like we did at the beginning, we added our SCOBY and our starter in to ferment the first batch. This is what you take out of this batch to start your next one. And over time, you can get 2 starters going, or 3, or however many gallons you want. This is the recipe for 1 gallon that I've been using. So we'll show you that, and you can cut scale up or scale down however you want to. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we get that start, so that we can make sure I have another batch going. So what I want to do is I'm going to take off the cap here. I have a mason jar. We're going to have a strainer and a bowl. We've got my flavorings for a little bit later that we're going to flavor the tea. We're going to have a bottle that you should have. That's going to be able to, that's where you're going to actually do the second fermentation. And then a funnel or 2 is what I use. I also need some measuring cups and other kitchen tools here to make this happen. But to start out, we're going to go ahead and get the starter for the next batch going. Now, make sure your hands are nice and clean. I just wash my hands. And then you can just reach in here. You use tongs if you want, or just use your hands. And you can pull out the mother and daughter. So as you can see, this was the mother from before. Let me show you here. So this was the mother from before. So it's make a little bit of a mess here, but it's kind of a disc of this shape here. That's pretty healthy. And then you can see this is the part that grew this time around. It's this little smaller daughter, but this is like the new, and sometimes they'll grow in layers, they'll grow in chunks. And you can kind of see, you can kind of separate it here. So this was the original piece, and this is what grew with this particular one. So when it's about this much, I'll just include it in my next start. But then the next time I do this, it'll probably be bigger. It'll grow another layer, and I'll break some of that out, and you can either just get rid of the extra pellicle, or I save it, and you can create a hotel of SCOBY, so you can have more starts ready. So if you want to share them with people, you can do that. Or you can turn into other products. So like there's a skincare product that's helped, mom a whole lot, and some others that I know. And, you can make some skincare, you can do masks out of it. People like to use it as like a vegan sushi alternative and eat it. It's really healthy, nutrient dense, with all those good yeast and bacteria that our microbiome needs. There's a lot of different things you can do. In the big book, it has a big section in the back of all the different stuff you can do. Hair care products you can do. People dry it out and use it to make like small leather products even. So it can be dried out, used for different applications. But anyway, you can grow those, grow them over time. So you can use them for a new start. Or, like I said, you can save them, share them, do all the other things with them. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead. I had some of this here. Let's see. I'm going to put this aside. Hang on. All right, so you're gonna need some sort of a scoop or something to remove from the top of your brewed Jun. I'm gonna take the blanket off first. So remove the blanket, get that out of the way, make it easy. All right, that's out of the way, great. Okay. This is a part you definitely wanna have paper towels around. You're gonna probably splash a little bit. But important when you move your brew, your Jun, you can see here at the bottom, we've got all the yeast and bacteria that's sunk to the bottom. So what happens is the yeast will consume the sugars or the sucrose and the honey, and that's what creates the fermentation process. So you have fermentation and respiration, which are the two processes we're using. It's, all geeky science stuff, but the idea is that the yeast consumes the sugar to ferment, and then that's what starts to create the SCOBY and ferment the Jun and everything else. So that's what you need to do. So you need about 2 cups of the strong. So the stuff at the top is more strong, stuff at the bottom is going to be more sweet. You can actually let the Jun just keep fermenting and fermenting and fermenting, and after about 4 to 6 weeks, if you just leave it alone and make sure that the SCOBY stays, the SCOBY doesn't dry out on the top, it'll turn into vinegar. So I actually have a bunch of vinegar here I can show you. I've got a full gallon that I kind of use of vinegar. You can see this has been brewing for months now, fermenting, and you can see all the different layers of the SCOBY in there, like the little discs each layer each time. You can kind of see them there. So it's just growing a bunch of SCOBYs and making vinegar. Vinegar can be used for a lot of things like mustard, and I make pickles with it. I add it to dressings. Really healthy alternative to any vinegar for cooking. Great flavor. And so I always try and keep some vinegar on hand for that. So that being said, I want to make sure that we have the stuff at the top is more, closer to vinegar. The stuff at the bottom again is the sweeter. So before I stir it, when I move it from with the blanket and I move it, I don't want to jostle it or stir it up too much. I want that yeast to stay at the bottom until I get my starter out. So I'm going to go ahead and get 2 cups, 1.5 to 2 cups. Doesn't have to be exact. So I'm going to scoop out here 1 cup. That's about a cup. And then get another a cup or so. Like I said, 1.5 to 2 cups of liquid. That's the strong starter liquid that goes along with the pellicle SCOBY. And then that will create something that looks like this. So you have your mother, your daughter in there, you got the liquid, and this is the start for the next batch. So we set that aside so that we can go back and repeat the process back to the beginning of the video. Put my cover on there. Now this can sit out. It'll have a fermentation smell, but you can either put it in a fridge, you can set it out on the counter, and really as long as you have the liquid and it doesn't go dry, it'll stay. The fermentation process actually preserves the liquid, and if it's done right, then it's not going to go bad like a vinegar, right? So it will get stronger and stronger and more vinegary, but that's okay. You can still use it as a start for your next batch. So if you want to take a break, or you're going to be out of town, sometimes if I'm traveling for work, I'll just leave them, make sure that they're nice and hydrated, and pick back up when I get home. You can also refrigerate them if you want to. Put them in a Ziploc bag or refrigerate. keep in mind when you do refrigerate this, it stops growing. So it'll stop the fermentation process to kind of go dormant because it's too cold. But you can do that indefinitely. You can store it as long as it doesn't dry out. You can put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the fridge and it should be okay. It shouldn't expand or grow. Yeah. And then the thing to remember then is when you pull it back out before you start your next batch, make sure that it warms up to room temperature and is there for about 12 hours or so at room temperature to get going and moving again. You want those cultures to be active before you add it to your next brew. So anyway, sometimes I refrigerate it for a while. Sometimes I keep them in a cabinet, whatever you like to do. If it does start to dry out, you can make your same batch 1 gallon recipe of green tea. And before I actually add my SCOBY in, what I'll do is I'll take out just a scoop of that tea to top off my SCOBY hotel here to make sure that I have enough liquid in there I can add to it, so that it doesn't dry out on top, because it'll start to do that and you'll see the SCOBY, the pellicle start to dry out. So I'll add a little scoop of the green tea before I put in my SCOBY to my next start and fill it up with water, and then that way I can keep feeding my hotel or feeding my starter if I'm taking a break. I know it's a lot of information, but this is how it works. So anyway, so there's a starter. I'm going to set that aside for my next batch. Now, what I can do is I can stir this up, and you're going to see all the good live yeast, bacteria, healthy stuff kind of blend together. And you still have some chunks too, some yeast strands or some chunks of the mother or daughter kind of hanging out in there. That's okay, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pour it into my bowl with a kind of a thick strainer here. So it's not a colander, but it's not the sieve, it's the in-between kind of thick strainer. I'll pour this in and let it run through and strain all the big pieces out, because I don't want big chunks of mother or pellicle in my drink. Even though it's really good for me and it's healthy, I just don't want them in there. It's not as pleasant as I like it to be. So I've got that done. I'm going to set this aside for my next batch. It's empty. And then I'm going to lift out my strainer. And as you can see in there, there's some chunks there that I didn't want in my drink. So that's pretty simple. I'm going to set that aside. And then the next thing I need to do is I need to get this stuff in the bottle with a flavor. So I'm going to go ahead. This time I'm just going to do a little bit of blueberry hibiscus. You can use any fruits. You can use vegetables. You can use herbs, spices, aromatics, botanicals. You can be creative. There's a ton of recipes in the big book of kombucha. Again, this book here, like I said, keep it nearby. There's an entire section of recipes of all the different flavors you can make. We do some of our favorites. You like pear cardamom, or we'll do an apple root beer. We'll do every year I'll make like a little pumpkin spice one for people around Thanksgiving time. I like to do a lot of strawberries and raspberries in the summer. Any flavors you like, you can make into that. So you'll get the recipes with the portions in the book. Again, I've got wild blueberries here and some hibiscus leaves, loose leaves, and I'm going to get those into the bottle. Okay, and then you go ahead and take your scoop. Adjusted the angle a little bit here so you can see what's going on. But I'm going to stir up the giant again. Just yeast will start to settle, so I keep it just moving a little bit, and I then start to fill up the bottle. I'm just using a funnel here. Now this Jun that I'm scooping in, that's done. If you want to drink a plain honey Jun, it won't have any carbonation. It'll have very, very light carbonation. It'll just have its fermented green honey tea flavor, which is great. But I like to flavor it, and it's half the fun for me is making the different flavors, making it taste good, and getting that carbonation just right. So I'm going to continue filling this. I want to go all the way up to the neck and just below the little collar at the top of the bottle. And I'll show you what that looks like when I get there. But I'm going to go ahead. I did blueberry, wild blueberry and hibiscus in this one. Should be a pretty good little flavor. So I'm going to continue. Now, I don't want it to the very, very top, but I don't want very much air in there either. So, I think I overfilled just slightly. So I'm going to go ahead and dump just a little bit of this out into there. Okay. And you want it to be about to that point, right up to the little collar on the bottle. You need a little bit of air there, because what's going to happen now is the second part of the process. And you can kind of see, if you look close, you can almost see some carbonation bubbles in there already moving a little bit. But what's going to happen now is we're introducing new sugar now. So we consume most of the sugar. The Jun, as is, when you ferment, after you're done with the first fermentation process, probably has about 2 to 4 grams of sugar per serving. So most of that sugar gets consumed by the yeast. So it's really a low sugar, very low glycemic index beverage. But we're introducing new sugar with the blueberries and just a little bit with the hibiscus. And it's also giving it something for the respiration process to grab onto, so the nucleation can happen and you can have carbonation. So you need a little bit of oxygen in the bottle at the top here, and it will take that oxygen to then, we'll close it off. And what it's going to do is take that little bit of oxygen, the yeast is then going to use that to consume the sugar and then give off CO2. And since the bottle is sealed tight, it will push the CO2 into the liquid rather than releasing it. So with the first fermentation process, it's creating the CO2, but because it's open air, it's off-gassing, and that CO2, most of it, probably 95% of it, leaves the liquid. But now when we have it capped, it'll be forced back into that. So now what we have here is, if I leave it for long enough, you have to be careful. This will be a glass bomb after, 5 days to a week. But what will happen is we'll build more and more carbonation over time, and it will flavor the Jun at the same time. So what I typically do is 36 to 48 hours in a second fermentation, and I'll check it usually about a day and a half in, and I'll burp it, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute, or I'll check it to make sure that the carbonation isn't too high, and get it to where I want it to be. Once it's there, I can put it in the fridge, and the fermentation respiration process will stop, and you'll then have your carbonated Jun in a bottle in the fridge. It won't keep growing, so you have to worry about it exploding as long as it's being refrigerated. If you don't have enough carbonation, you leave it out at room temperature on the counter a little bit longer. If you have too much, then next time you need to put it in the refrigerator a little sooner. So you're trying to dial it in. It's a little bit of an experiment, but I always check it, like I said, 36, 24. I might even check it depending if it's new ingredients. Keep in mind, if you put certain ingredients together that are, say you have a really basic ingredient and then a very alkaline ingredient, it creates a higher reaction, and it can carbonate a lot faster and have a lot more pressure. So one time I tried to do ginger turmeric, for example, and the bottles, they weren't very good bottles. I was still learning, but the bottles ended up exploding because there was so much pressure after 2 days, which was a huge mess. Still cleaning up after it today, hit the ceiling and everything. So just keep your eye on it. It's not too scary, but you want to make sure you're checking it. So I'm going to set this one aside, and I'll check it in about a day and a half. But I already have one here that's been sitting out, smaller one. This is another blueberry one that I have. I think this is blueberry lemon. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna burp this one to check the carbonation. You should be able to hear it, but be very careful. Make sure you have plenty of pressure with your hand on top, because you don't want this to pop open and explode all over in case there's too much in there. But I'm gonna go ahead and just pop the bottle, let a little bit of air out in here to carbonation, give it a little bit more room, and then I can let it to ferment a little bit more if I want to get more carbonation in there, or I can say, hey, that's enough, and put it in the fridge. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Oh, this one has quite a bit of carbonation, as you saw there. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the fridge, and then, but before I do, I'll demonstrate how I open them when I'm unsure about the pressure. I'm gonna grab a Ziploc bag, and just to be safe, when I open up one of these bottles, if I'm unsure how much pressure's in it from this batch, so a lot of times the first one in a batch, I'll put a Ziploc bag over the top and then open it inside of a bowl. And when I do that, it'll overflow into the bag and into the bowl, and then I can strain it and everything else. As you notice here, there's still the blueberries in there. Some people like to drink them, little fermented fruit chunks. I like to strain them out with a tea strainer or just a strainer, and then have it in a glass. But this one right here looks like it's ready to go in the refrigerator, and then drink it when I'm ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And I should just stay there. We should be good. So that's how you do your second fermentation. Make sure, like I said, you burp it after a day, day and a half. Usually by 2 days, with most ingredients, I have at least enough carbonation, if not a little too much. So again, after you check after a day and a half, you can decide if that's enough carbonation for you or not. It's a very different carbonation. You'll notice it's a lot smaller, natural, small bubbles. instead of the big forced carbonation bubbles that we have in soda. It's kind of cool. Big science experiment, but that's how that works. Let me just look at my notes here and see a couple comments here. We talked about vinegar. We talked about how the sugar feeds the yeast and makes the fermentation happen. Fermentation respiration, about flavoring, bottling. A lot of times, just if you're kind of a hesitant with the mother and the daughter of the pellicle, the SCOBY, just remember that it's like no different than a mushroom. In fact, in other languages, they'll call it a tea mushroom. When they ferment tea, they'll call it a tea mushroom, in Eastern cultures specifically. So that's more what we're talking about, is like a mushroom there. I think they're really cool. It's kind of fun to mess with and play with. And you just keep growing them. You can use them for all kinds of stuff. So happy brewing. Again, this will be ready about a day and a half to 2. And I can pop it, I can strain it, I can drink the fruit however I want to do that. And it should be good to go. So that is how you make Jun. I'm available for any questions if you ever want to reach out, but this book has everything in it. A lot more detail than I gave you, a lot more explanations about stuff. And hopefully you guys enjoy it. I usually pick a day during the week that's like my day. So I'll say like Tuesday nights are the nights I do Jun, and I start a new batch, and then I, strain and flavor that batch, and then I start the next one right after, and just pick an evening and make it happen. It's about all I can think of right now, but if you have questions, again, let me know, and happy brewing.